Welcome back to the Bentonville Beacon podcast, where we're sharing stories and advice from the leaders sparking the rise of Bentonville, one of the fastest growing and most dynamic cities in the United States, nestled in the Ozark Mountains of Northwest Arkansas in the heartland of America. Hey, I'm your host, James Bell, and it is my pleasure to share the studio today with Jackie Roach, who is Executive Director for Northwest Arkansas for Best Friends Animal Society. Best Friends is working to save the lives of cats and dogs, give them a second chance, and give them happy homes. And I'm thrilled to say that Best Friends is also opening a community-based resource center here in Bentonville, and then we'll be talking about that today. And then Jackie, by the way, is also co-founder of Taysia Blue Rescue. Jackie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, let's get started. What should the Bentonville Beacon audience know about you?
That is such a tough question to answer. You know, I think I spent the first 3 decades of my career making it really easy for people to buy things that they didn't need. It was not super fulfilling, from that, heart standpoint. Mm-hmm. It was a fun career. It was successful career. But now I get to wake up every day and feel like I can make an impact. And people every day show me pictures of their pets on their phones. And I get to do that for a living. I think that's so cool.
That is awesome. What I didn't hear in there was something we were talking about before the show. So I have to ask now. Tell me about coffee. I'll just leave it there and let you explain.
So, yes, in the early 90s, mid 90s, I guess, before it was cool to have craft roasted coffee, I owned a coffee roasting company in Omaha, Nebraska. And at the time I sold the business, the terms of the sale was that I would get coffee for life. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I feed my habit.
Well, as a cup every 90 minutes guy, I understand.
Right.
So the focus of this show today is on Best Friends Animal Society. But first, I'd love it if you could tell the audience about Taysia Blue Rescue. That is, tell us what's the story. What inspired you and your co-founders to start the organization? Absolutely.
So at that time I was volunteering at the at a animal shelter in Omaha, Nebraska. And I was probably in the back areas where I probably shouldn't have been as a volunteer, and came across this really scruffy looking dog that just, I don't know, there was something about the look in her eyes. And I looked at her paperwork, and in red Sharpie, it said PTS on her paperwork. And I didn't know it naively. I didn't know what that meant. And I found out it meant put to sleep. And I was moved by that. And I'm like, no, this animal's going to go home with me. And if there's something wrong with her, at least, she'll end her life with a family. And as it turns out, she actually lived a really great life. And I would look at her and I think, you almost died.
Wow.
And you didn't need to. And so I thought, well, maybe somebody should do something, and that somebody, I guess, was me. And the other thing was that really disturbed me about the shelter that I volunteered at was that I was a volunteer adoption counselor, and people would come in and adopt animals, and they're so excited. They're with their families. They're taking home a new dog or a new cat to go home, and they're so excited. They go up to the front, and they go to sign their adoption contract and pay, and the customer service was so horrific. And I just thought, that experience shouldn't be that way. There's so much more that, people should have a good experience when they're adopting an animal. And I just kind of felt like I wanted to do my own thing and treat people the way they deserve to be treated.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about what you said about PTS, my dog that I had the longest, this dog Bailey, I described him as a great North American generic black super attention hound.
I love it. That's
and anybody who knew the personality of the dog would completely understand that. But he was a lab that didn't grow up that big, and I was his third person by his 5th month, and the second person effectively took him from the first people when they said. When they had a bunch of puppies running around and said that well, he was the run of the litter, and they're like, oh, I want to take this one with me. And they said, feel free, because if you don't, we're shooting him tomorrow. We have too many. And I thought, that's awful. And so, just like dogs deserve better lives than that. We don't even deserve them. And so I'm glad to hear that you were able to rescue a dog from that fate. So Taysia's focused on a couple of specific breeds, and I'm curious to learn, will you share or speak to the role of animal or breed-specific rescues and why that's needed, and why these folks should support organizations like Taysia?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess if I had to do it again, maybe I wouldn't have created something that had those kind of specific barriers, but we fit a niche. The organization fits a niche. But all of those rescue organizations work to either help owners that can no longer care for their pets, or like Taysia does, which focuses primarily on shelters that need to create capacity by moving animals out, taking those dogs into their care. We're all part of this cycle of saving pets, and a municipal or private animal shelter needs to use all those levers to find positive outcomes for pets. And part of that is having those relationships with the private rescue groups, whether it's cats or breed specific or, all breed or whatever it is, or transport partners, to be able to achieve their life-saving goals. And, it's just all part of the process. So very important piece.
Awesome. So how did your experience, getting a pretty good guess here, but how did your experience with Taysia lead you to join Best Friends?
Well, the other founding partner was my husband. We had no idea what we were doing.
Okay.
I wasn't even a dog person. I met my husband, and I told him at the time I met him, I told him we'd never have dogs. I was a cat person. We would never have dogs. And, now that's where we focus. But, we didn't know anything. We wanted to soak up as much knowledge from experts as we could. And so we attended a Best Friends national conference, and we both, divided and conquered and went to all sorts of sessions, took copious notes. We'd spend the evenings talking and brainstorming about, how we could create more capacity, how we needed to focus on shortening a length of stay, how could we could maximize the marketing. And we really kind of learned from Best Friends and from all the other experts that Best Friends brought into the organization. We just kind of bought in. So I feel like I've been part of Best Friends and part of that, part of the learning and education that Best Friends is so good at for, a long time now, 13 years. So.
Wow. Well, what a neat way to sort of get in.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Best Friends. Will you tell our audience about Best Friends and its mission?
Yeah. Best Friends Animal Society. The mission is to bring about a time when there are no more homeless pets. And right now we're super focused on ending the killing of shelter cats and dogs by 2025. And, I think you hear the term no kill, and I think that confuses people, but words are pretty important and they're pretty intentional. The word euthanasia means mercy. And we understand that there are going to be some animals in shelters that are too sick or too injured or too behaviorally not sound to make it, to work into the community or to be adopted. And so no kill is just really a benchmark. We look at 90% save rate from a shelter as being considered no kill. And so we're working with every shelter and every community to try to help them achieve that and help them improve their life saving.
That's very cool. I'm inspired by that goal of no kill. That's awesome.
It really is. It's fascinating, and it's so much fun to watch the progress.
Yeah. So what inspired Best Friends then to put a community-based resource center here in Bentonville?
Well, that's pretty unique because I don't think Bentonville was on Best Friends' radar, but there was a group of folks, just like you and I, that wanted, something better for the pets in Bentonville. At the time, there was no Bentonville Animal Shelter on the horizon like there is now. And, these advocates just really wanted something better for pets in this community. And there was an RFP that was submitted through the Walton Family Foundation, and Best Friends, came in and did an assessment of Bentonville and of Northwest Arkansas and determined that yes, Bentonville could support an animal shelter. And as we started looking at the area and looking at Northwest Arkansas as a whole, really felt like this was such a unique area that there were urban parts, there's rural parts. It was kind of a microcosm of America.
Yeah.
And could we really kind of create and shape what a shelter of the future could look like here? And here we are, getting ready to open. So very exciting.
That's awesome. Well, can you talk about the operation and design of your new facility, and in particular, how this center is different from traditional animal shelters?
Yeah, it's very different. In fact, and it's not an animal shelter. There's no cages or kennels in the building. It is really designed to be more for people than it is for pets. And if you think about an animal shelter is a very transactional place. There's only a handful of things you go to an animal shelter for. You would go to maybe get your license, your pet. Maybe you lost your pet and animal control officer found it, brought it to the shelter. So you're going to go pick up your pet, or you're going to go adopt. But it's still a very transactional sort of thing. What we want to do, the idea of community-supported sheltering, is inviting the community in to help be part of the solution as we reach out to the community in need. And so that's what really the center is all about.
That is very cool. So there's a few specific services and programs I'd love to ask about, then have you also share after that, more of what the services are that you provide. Let's talk about fostering pets. This area is really interesting to me. What are the benefits of having animals in foster homes, and what's the role of the center in supporting those families?
Sure.
That do that?
Foster care is really important. An animal shelter is a very dangerous, unhealthy place for a cat or dog to live for a lot of different reasons. It's really hard. Disease can be very prevalent. It can spread very quickly. Just the environment of being in a cage and seeing other animals is very stressful for an animal, as well as the fact that, if an animal shelter is at capacity, they may have to make some hard decisions to create new capacity. So it's not a safe place for an animal to be. And, we've taught the public for years and years, you find a stray animal, take it to the animal shelter. Not necessarily maybe the right thing to do. Maybe there's things that you can do in your own neighborhood to help find that animal, reunite them with their owners. But so foster care is a way for a shelter to bring in an animal, place it in a home, and now all of a sudden we not just see the animal going circles in a kennel or just laying there taking a nap. We now know personality traits. We know whether or not the cat uses its litter box. We know whether or not the dog is house trained. We know if the dog is high energy. We know if, this dog likes to sleep in bed. We can share this information. And I think that really helps when you make that adoption connection to be able to share this information. Otherwise, it's kind of a surprise. You're like, oh, we'll see what happens when I get home.
Right.
So,
I mean, I can imagine if you're not the type of person who likes to sleep in a bed with a dog, and the dog's like, no, that's where I'm going.
That's where I'm going. Yeah.
The dog I mentioned a moment ago, my next door neighbor laughed at me when she found out I had a dog at that time. And so she was an elderly lady, and she's like, the first day I let him in the house, and she's like, that dog's gonna be sleeping in bed with you by the end of the week. And on day 2, he made it past the kitchen. On day 3, he made it into the hallway. And by the end of the week, sure enough, that's where he slept for the next 15 years.
And the other thing I love about fostering is that, I think for families that foster, what a great thing to teach your children and to teach them that, we can bring an animal into our home. We can be part of this process of saving this animal, saving this life, and helping them, make that transition on, to the next to the next family.
Yeah, that is so cool. So for folks who may be wondering if they qualify or should foster pets, what advice do you have for them and what should they do next?
Do you like the animals? That's pretty much no. Seriously, I think it is important because I've always had I've had a foster dog in my house for the last 13 years, and it's been rare. It's a rare time when I don't have a foster dog. But it's really important that you think about what is it I want. If I'm working 60 hours, I probably don't want a high energy 1-year-old. But there is someone for everyone. If I'm working 60 hours a week at my job, I could probably foster a cat. That'd probably be pretty easy. I could probably foster a dog that's recovering from medical issues or maybe has heartworm disease that can't be super active. So I think really understanding what you want first and then, finding the right one for you is pretty perfect. I would check if you rent, check and make sure you can have a pet.
Yeah, you bet.
Or you can do it quietly, but
we won't tell if
we won't tell anybody.
That's cool. We'll talk about also the community pantry. What's that all about, and how does it support pets and their families?
Yeah. So, the community pantry is great. I just read a statistic that 29 million families that own pets are on human services like SNAP. But we don't have those kinds of programs to help people feed their pets. And, owning a pet, having that pet companion shouldn't be a privilege. And so we want to open up the pet pantry where we can receive donations from the community and we can help support community members that might need a little extra help feeding their pets. And that's really what that's all about. And the cool thing about it is it really all starts with a pet care navigator, which is a web-based tool that folks needing any kind of pet service can at least start their process there, whether they need training tips or they need a little help with pet food, they might need some veterinary care, or maybe they just need to know where to go to find a birthday cake for their pet. They can go to the pet care navigator, find services, and find access through that, and then we can connect them to the resources that they need.
That's cool. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here. Have y'all connected any corporate organizations that could support like providing pet food? Hey, I'm looking at you, Simmons Foods. That's who I'm thinking about here in Northwest Arkansas.
We have
don't want to call you out, but
yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of partners, and we'd love to have a lot more. There's a lot of folks that that have pets. Arkansas is one of the largest pet owning states in the country. I think we're 5th largest or something, with 5th or 7th largest in the country.
Wow. Okay. So you even offer vet services, spaying, neutering, and other services for income qualifying families.
Yes.
What I'm really hearing here is a theme that's prevalent in a lot of things here in Northwest Arkansas, and it's about access, right? Access. And everything that we've discussed. But I like this because you're helping people give their pets the lives that their pets deserve, the medical care that they deserve. Will you talk about the importance of this and I guess share more of the vet services that you do offer?
Yeah. Every pet deserves access to care, and studies will show that your human health, human emotional health is directly connected to your ability to provide veterinary care to your pet. And 28% of people cannot afford veterinary care for their pets. And so it's definitely a need. There's a veterinary shortage right now across the country. And you combine that with, Arkansas, a state with a lot of rural areas. There's a lot of there are no veterinarians within a driving distance. So access is a real challenge with veterinary care. Now, our clinic will support the animals that we bring in, as well as we want to support the shelters and rescues here. We've heard from a lot of veterinarians in the community that they're struggling keeping up the demand with their own clients, and yet, the rescues and shelters are needing needing services. So we want to be able to take some of that burden off of them so they can focus on their clients. We also want to help with the outdoor unowned community cats that need to be spayed and neutered, and make sure that folks can bring those cats in, get them vaccinated and spayed and neutered, and return them to their homes, without a big financial impact. We want to provide microchips, and vaccination clinics. We'll have those a couple times each week. And then, of course, for folks that, that need that access to care, we want to either help provide that care or help find the services that can help them do that.
Awesome. That's very cool. So it sounds like the community can expect them microchipping. I think you are doing some education. Anything else?
Oh, yes. We're going to have lots of fun activities too. Awesome. One of the things that we did a design inspiration trip when we were getting ready to build this building, and we went to the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, and they had this really cool space, and we kind of reimagined it into what a volunteer space could be like. And if you've ever volunteered, and I'm sure some of your listeners have volunteered in an animal shelter, you don't even typically have a place to put your keys, or your phone or your purse. You just lock them up in your car and hope for the best. But we created this space that is front and center at the Pet Resource Center. I can't wait for you to see it. Yeah. And people can come in and, we'll have DIY makerspace craft projects left and right. So, we might have some opportunities for people to make cat blankets that we'll distribute to shelters across the state. Or maybe we'll stuff some Kongs and then deliver them to the shelters, here in Northwest Arkansas. So, there's just a lot of things, fun things, activities to really connect people and pets, and also invite the community into the mission and the work that we're doing, and encourage them to help.
Oh, I can picture me and my family going out to do that.
Oh, yeah.
That's definitely going to happen. Well, let me ask, how does one sign up to be a volunteer, and how many volunteers do you need? Is there a limit?
There is no limit. No,
Awesome.
we need lots and lots of volunteers. I feel like every day I'm saying to my team, we need a volunteer for that. We should have a volunteer leader for that. We should, let's recruit some volunteers. So absolutely. Bestfriends.org /NWA.
Perfect. Well, this is exciting.
It is very exciting.
My goodness. I love it. Bentonville has this history, and at least more and more in the last, say, 10 to 15 years of showing the world how to live, and not just saying it, but actually doing it. And I feel like this is more of that Bentonville gets to model what this should look like through the work of Best Friends. And I really appreciate that we're going to get the opportunity to help pets live the best lives that they deserve through the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's what we want to do, is to rethink how we're thinking about animal shelters. That's been one of the challenges in building this project, is there is no roadmap. This is the first of its kind to be this community-supported resource center from the ground up. But is this a model then that other shelters can follow? Are there pieces and parts that they can take from that? And, we're going to see lots of shelters and shelter leaders coming in and learning and observing what we're doing here. And hopefully we can be that inspiration for others.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so let's talk about Bentonville and your experiences here. You're from Nebraska,
yes.
I take it, and I've seen your background working with a lot of brands. We talked a little bit about it here. I can make some guesses, but how did you end up in Bentonville?
I came to Bentonville for this job, for this project.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
And well, will you share your thoughts on Bentonville's business community and the people and the culture here, and how this has impacted your work so far with Best Friends?
It's like no other place I've ever been. It's really incredible. The community is so open and willing to listen and to help. Whether it's Bentonville Brewing Company putting, photo frames of adoptable dogs, with QR codes, and or hosting events for us, or we've been leasing space with Cool Wag, and everyone just wants to be part of it. It's just really a unique thing.
That's cool. Well, how has Bentonville's culture enriched your life personally? How's Bentonville helping you live your best life?
There's nothing I miss here. And I kind of thought I might.
Mm-hmm.
And, I really don't. The restaurants are fantastic. My husband and I are both vegetarians, and we thought maybe that would be a
Mm-hmm.
struggle. It's not. It's just really been a really, really wonderful opportunity. I feel very connected. I go places and people know me. I've only lived here 4.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, before, Omaha's not that big, but it's still very anonymous, when you go places, and I feel very connected here.
That's cool. You mentioned restaurants, being a vegetarian. Okay, I got to know, where do you eat when you're a vegetarian in Northwest Arkansas?
Just about anywhere, but
Okay.
a preacher's son, there's really no place. Almost everywhere I can go and order something.
Wonderful. Will you? What do you do in your free time? I mean, you mentioned restaurants and so on, but what else do you do here in Bentonville and across the region?
Yeah, I love live theater, so I'm a Theater Squared
Mm-hmm.
junkie. Love to do that. I've got dogs of my own. I've got quite a few, so we like to go explore the trails and go for walks and just enjoy the beautiful scenery.
Awesome. I love Theater Square too. My wife and I just went for the first time, finally, just last week. We went to see
Kim's Convenience.
Kim's Convenience. Thank you.
I'm going on Sunday.
It was fantastic. You're really
can't
going to
wait.
enjoy
Yeah.
it. Tell me a story. And this is a hashtag because Bentonville story. It doesn't take very long to start racking up these stories, but pick one out of a moment or a full-fledged story that you feel like could only happen here or describes the essence of this place.
Oh, you know what? This is going to spill over outside of Bentonville into
Sure.
all of Northwest Arkansas, but Christmas Day this year, I was kind of settling into the afternoon, ready to relax. And I happened to look at my phone, and there was a message on there, and I found out that the Springdale Animal Shelter, their pipes burst, and they were without electricity. And I thought, oh, why is it always on a holiday? But so I got on my email, and I thought, there is no way that I'm going to find anybody to help until tomorrow. And I threw out a bunch of emails to a handful of folks at now probably 3:00 in the afternoon on Christmas Day. Within maybe an hour, I had a text that 12 animals at this shelter were going to be picked up and were going to be sleeping in foster homes that night. The brand new person in charge at the Centerton Animal Shelter, I don't even know that he knew he was in charge of the Centerton Animal Shelter yet, but Captain Kelly committed to helping with 3. I had Clay Morgan from Humane Society for the Animals in Rogers was like, yeah, I'll pick up several tomorrow. And Big Paws of the Ozarks, Kayla, emailed me, and she's like, I can pick up, I can get 12. And we were able to move out about 50% of the animals that were in the Springdale Animal Shelter to various places all over, mostly Rogers and Bentonville, Centerton area. And that gave the folks at the Springdale shelter fewer animals to take care of because they were without electricity, fewer animals to feed. It gave them a little bit of just space to work and fix the pipes and do what they needed to do. And it was so unique and it was so special. And, I wasn't surprised that people stepped up to help. It was, the fact that it was Christmas Day and people dropped what they were doing to help. And that was pretty wonderful, pretty incredible.
I love that story. What advice would you give to people who maybe haven't been to Northwest Arkansas or to Bentonville yet and is wondering if this place might be for them? Maybe they're looking for a change in scenery personally or for their business. What advice would you give them?
Oh, they've got to check it out. I mean, I had my own perception of what Bentonville, Arkansas would be. And, and I've been really completely blown away by it. And I think what's really unique is the successful, independent, small businesses are so supported here. I love that about this area because, it's home of the Fortune 1.
Yeah.
And yet so many independent small businesses thrive. And I think that's really unique and really special.
Yeah. Well, I remind people every day that more than 98% of our businesses in Bentonville and across the region, it's also true, have fewer than 100 employees.
Wow.
So we're not that different from other places, even though we have all these other amazing organizations. Okay, Jackie, a few questions as we start wrapping up.
Okay.
This first one is it's kind of a random. If you could be any animal, and it can't be a cat or a dog. So if you could be any animal other than a cat or dog, what would you be and why?
Oh, wow. I think I would be a wolf. I think I would be the alpha female. And if you ever study wolf packs and how they take care of each other, and there's an order for things, and everybody kind of does their job and takes care of the pack. I like that. It's very community.
Awesome. Other than best friends, and also not including Taysia, what's your favorite role you've ever had and why?
Oh, that's tough because I've had a lot of really cool jobs. My first job out of college, I was a VIP and celebrity tour guide at Walt Disney World. So I just don't think,
easy.
I rode rides for 2 years.
Yeah, it would be really difficult to pick out any other job and top that. That's pretty solid. If somebody wants to reach you, you mentioned the website earlier, but if somebody wanted to reach you directly or they want to know more about Best Friends, how do they do that?
Yeah, Jackie R at bestfriends.org. Shoot me an email. I love to hear from folks, and I love to see their pet pictures. So send me those. I love it.
I'll show you some pet pictures after we're done
I'm
here.
sure you will.
One last question, Jackie. What's something I should have asked you but did not ask?
One of the things that's really cool about Best Friends, and this is something I'm really proud of, because I was brought here to work on this project, and I was one person that moved into this community. We now have a staff of 34. Actually, wow. I think we might have a couple open positions still, but we are a staff of 34. And Best Friends has made such a cool commitment to their staff by paying not a competitive wage, but a living wage to our animal caregivers, and really putting value on the work that everyone does for the organization. And I just think that's really, really cool and really special, and something that doesn't get talked about a lot.
That's wonderful. Jackie, thank you so much for spending time with me and our Bentonville Beacon audience today. Yeah, you bet. I can't wait to check out the facility when it's open. I can't wait for the day when my family's finally ready for a dog again. Really, when my wife's ready for a dog again. But I can't wait for the day. We have a 2.5-year-old boy at home. And
that's a lot.
It's going to happen, right? At some point, that boy is going to want a dog. And I can't wait for that day. But thank you for the work that you're doing and that Best Friends is doing to help pets and their people have the best lives that they deserve.
Thank you.
And thank you to our Bentonville Beacon audience. Without you, we couldn't do this show. So keep coming back. Visit BentonvilleEconomicDevelopment.com to see all of our episodes, or check out your favorite podcast player. Of course, hit subscribe and keep coming back to learn more about Bentonville and its leaders and businesses, and about Bentonville in Northwest Arkansas, this place where you get more of what you want and less of what you don't. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.